Hello and welcome to another episode of Fire 5 at Phoenix. It has been a while. It is now 2024, and we are here with a new episode, slightly later than planned, but back. And today's topic talking about goals. So I have I have six questions that have been sent in for us to answer. And so we will go through those. It's myself, Zoe from Phoenix Coaching, and joined by my son, Nassim Ladjimi.
Long overdue, but we're here.
It's almost like we had things to do, like we've been busy, busy people. But
Definitely,
goals is probably going to be part of that. So you ready for these questions?
definitely am.
Okay, so the first one, uh, and none of these are to either of us specifically, so they're just more
Yeah,
up for conversation. So first one, can you have too many goals? What do
I
you think?
think you can
Do you? Okay.
because if you have too many, then you don't like put your all into the ones. Like for example, the ones that matter the most, and like you can have like a long-term goals and like short-term goals and like present goals and whatnot. But like if you have too many, like you can't really work on getting towards the other ones like as much as you would be if you had two or three goals, for example.
Okay. What if they're on like different areas? Like one physical goal, one kind of more maybe mental or development goal. Does that make a difference?
Yeah, I think how I see it is like it's literally in terms of the number, and same with kind of how you said, like can't be too close to the same like topic in a way, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
like the same area. But like having like five goals in one area, like there you could be doing stuff that's gonna help you achieve all of them, but at the same time, like you want to kind of round that up and kind of generalize it a bit more, and if that makes sense.
So like less is more,
Yeah, yeah,
or less helps you to get more.
yeah,
Yeah, that
exactly
makes
that.
sense. I think it can feel very overwhelming if you've got too much, but I think that's the challenge, isn't it? Because there's probably lots of things that we all want to do, but how do you prioritize which ones are important? And I think it's whether or not you can have them like whether you can work on all of them at the same time. So, and I know you came to the Accelerate workshop in January, like talking about until you break down all of your goals and what that looks like in terms of daily, weekly actions, you don't know whether or not it's even doable, let
Yeah,
alone manageable. So I think that's the challenge is I personally think you can have too many goals, but I don't think it should be limited to one goal. I think it's good to work on different areas, and sometimes they're dependent on each other as well. But I think until you break it down into those smaller tasks or actions and you have a good understanding of what that looks like and how you need to show up every day, every week, every month, you don't know whether or not that's sustainable. And I think that's the
yeah.
biggest challenge for a lot of people is the consistency and creating an action plan that is manageable and sustainable over time.
Yeah, no, I agree with that actually. When you put it like that, I kind of yeah. When the question was first said like about too many goals, I was thinking like loads of goals, which isn't a bad thing because it means you're ambitious, but there is the smart and kind of efficient way to do them.
How many goals have you got for this year?
I don't even know. Like, I kind of don't really have any. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't define that I have goals. Do you know what I mean? I have things I want to do, and I know how I want to do them. But like, I wouldn't say they're goals. They're just things that I know are gonna that I do day by day, and kind of take it one step at a time. Rather than because a lot of goals, you can give yourself a set time. I want to achieve this by this time, but like, I'm kind of just taking it as it goes at the moment.
So if that's not goals, what are they?
Ambitions.
Okay. So what's the difference? And I just generally curious what the difference is.
I think just like how I've always how I grew up learning about goals and obviously with like as well like GCSEP they talk about goal setting and
Hmm.
how to goal set. Goal set for me were like defined. I want to do a specific thing by this specific time. by doing these specific things.
Good old
And
smart,
then
good old smart
yeah,
goals, huh? Yeah.
yeah, smart goals, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I even though they are like you're right, they are goals, but I'm not approaching them with a deadline,
So they're not
if that
time
makes sense.
specific.
Yeah.
You? Okay.
How many goals do you have?
Oh, I've got lots of
Well, I'm thinking
goals.
the post-it
Probably,
notes to your right say a lot.
yeah, I've got business related goals, I've got personal related goals, I've got like self-development ones, I've got more sort of health and fitness ones, more kind of, I guess, fulfillment type goals of what I want, what good looks like for me. Yeah, I've got lots of goals, but they
Yeah, I
are
know you do.
all very different. So in terms of like how much mental energy and physical energy I need to put into them, it's all manageable because it all fits in together.
Makes sense.
So yeah, I think it's very individual, and I think it also depends on the goal. So I think the answer is yes, you can have too many goals, but I think also you can have lots of goals.
Yeah, like that statement shouldn't like restrict yourself from making less goals.
So true. Okay. So leading on from that, the second question that came in, so it says like maybe once you set your goals, how do you make sure that they are progressed and consistently worked on and not just sat on a bit of paper?
Kind of yeah, like for me when I've like had goals in the past, it's like stays on my mind. Like everything, for example, with my training, like everything I'm doing in my training is to reach that goal. It's I'm making sure that I'm doing all the right things and not just kind of wasting my time doing the wrong things because I know that's not going to take me to my goal. Ensuring that I'm doing all the correct things that I know will bring me closer to that goal every day.
Yeah, that's true. I think for me, and this leads back to what we were saying earlier, like you need to break it down into what that looks like over shorter periods of time.
Yeah,
So what I get people to do is start with the end in mind. What does good look like? What will be different when you achieve it? So how do you know that you've achieved it? So some goals are easy to measure. So it's much easier to say, right, in 12 months' time, this is what it will look like. But it's
yeah,
not the same for everything. So, like some of the sort of more fulfillment goals, I want to be more happy or more settled or more calm, might not have a specific measure to it. That's why SMART goals as a framework, it doesn't necessarily work for something like that. But I think you can still describe and picture what you want at the end of it. And then get people to then break it down. So, okay, when you're at the halfway point, what will that look like? When you're a third of the way, like 2/3 of the way, three, what will that start to look
yeah.
like?
Because the
So,
goal can look quite far away in terms of depending on what you're trying to achieve,
exactly,
and then
exactly.
you need those little checkpoints in a way just to
Yeah. So
know that you're going in the right direction.
if you've got a goal that's easy to measure, like at the halfway point, it might be that you go, okay, well, if it's say like, so let's put it into basketball terms. If you wanted an average of say 50% free throw rate by the end of the season,
That's awful.
then, pardon, is that
That's an
awful?
awful percentage.
This is why I'm not setting those goals. Okay, so tell
Yeah,
me what's a good free throw percentage?
like 80 plus.
Okay, so let's say you want 90% free throw average by the end of the year. So by the halfway point, that needs to be like around 50%, like 45, 50%. So you need to be working that way up. And maybe this is not a good example, but I think you need to know what that looks like at the halfway point to know that you're
Yeah,
making that progress. But then you need to then break that down. We should not have brought I should not have brought basketball into this.
no,
This
you
is
shouldn't
where
have.
the
No.
this is where the conversation has gone wrong. Okay, let me stick to what I know.
Yeah,
So let's say, for example, so for me, one of the examples that I tend to use is like, say you want to run a marathon. Okay, in a year's time, you want to run a marathon. So you know that in 12 months' time, you need to be able to run 26.2 miles, whatever it
yeah.
is, kilometers, miles. So, by the halfway point, you need to be running around a half marathon. And I know marathon training doesn't work like this, but just for this example only. So when you break that down, if in 6 months it needs to look like this, then then in 9 months it needs to look like this to get to this in 12 months. So if you know what it looks like in 6 months, then you can work out what it looks like in 3 months. And if you can work it out in 3 months, then you can start to go 2 and 1. So then you're setting those milestones to know that you're making that progress. But I think also what's really important, and I think leading into answering this question, like how do you make sure that you're making that progress consistently and it's not just sat on a bit of paper? And especially with New Year's resolutions, you don't want to get to like November and go, people say, oh, hey, how did you get on with your goals this year? And it's like, okay, I have a 1 month
Yeah,
to get everything, or end up running a marathon with like zero training. But I think it's also really important to divide up, like, what do you want to achieve each month? Like, where do you want to be at the end of each month? But then also, what does that look like in terms of each week? How do you chunk that down so that each week you can see that you're making that progress? But most importantly, it's the daily stuff that you need to do, because, everything that we do in terms of our habits and our behaviors is what takes us closer to our goal. So even if you want to run a marathon, the things that you do on a daily basis, like drinking enough water, eating good food, getting enough rest and sleep, stretching, they are all things that contribute to you doing the bigger stuff. But it's
exactly. You
also
got to embed it into your lifestyle.
exactly,
Yeah,
they're all the things that contribute to like the bigger goals, but it's also the things that keep it front of mind. So I think those things are really important. And I think I think it's James, I'm pretty sure it's James Clear, but in terms of, he says, if you want to find out where you're going to be in 12 months time, look at how you're investing your time and energy every day, because that will tell you
yeah,
what you're moving towards. And the other quote I like is, the question, if every day is like today, where will you be in 12 months time? So if you continue in the same way, at the same pace, the same direction, are you going to be where you want to be in 12 months time?
yeah.
And
That's
that will
nice. I like
answer your
that. Yeah,
question for you. But I think that's what keeps it close to mind. And I think it is writing it down, it is keeping it visible, but it is also looking at how you show up every day, but also how do you check in every week to make sure that you're kind of ticking off that process.
definitely,
So is that what you're doing?
definitely. Yeah,
Obviously.
it's just embedded. It's woven in.
Yeah, just checking.
Yeah.
So, the third question, what strategies can work when the initial motivation, commitment, or enthusiasm for the goal starts to wane or stop, the foot being taken off the gas when results are happening? So that's the biggest challenge, isn't it? When you're not getting where you want to get to, how do you stay motivated? How do you keep going when that commitment or that enthusiasm wears off? Which is probably, for people who made New Year's resolutions, we're recording this mid-February. It is probably right about now.
I think the biggest thing, especially I think even for us, but what I think helps me is just having someone to hold you accountable. Literally that, like you don't want them to ask you and you says, if we've made any goals and we, you've asked me how it's going and I could tell you it's going good, but you'd know it's not going great. And just having someone that's gonna call you out and question you and hold you accountable for sticking with it, I think that's the biggest thing for me, definitely.
Yeah. I think also knowing what motivated you to get started in the first place and reminding
Yeah,
yourself
that
of
too.
that,
Yeah,
I think that's really important. But I think motivation, I'm going to talk about this a lot, but it's so important. Like, people wait to feel motivated to take action, and you can't wait to feel motivated. You have to, that's where the discipline comes in. And that's where the planning that we were talking about with that last question, that's where the planning comes in. Because if you've got a plan to follow and you know that you're committed to showing up to following that plan, the discipline and that consistency is what will keep the results coming in, and that's what keeps you motivated. But if you're
yeah,
waiting to feel motivated to start, especially when you know, like the UK now, like it's dark in the morning, it's dark in the evening, it's raining like 90% of the time, it's cold, it's miserable. Like nobody feels like leaving the house to go out training or go out for the run or go to the gym. So you have to have that plan that helps you to be disciplined and stay consistent, because that then gets you motivated. It's going to help you to kind of keep that enthusiasm going. But I think also it's really hard. And it makes sense that you would be results orientated, but you have to find other things that keep you motivated as well. You can't just be
Yeah.
motivated on the results, because the results won't always be under your control. But if you can be motivated by lots of other things that you can control, then I think that also helps.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's not every day that, for example, like for the gym, like you're not gonna see your progress like every day. You're not gonna look in the mirror and see anything different every day. It comes with a matter of time, but being dependent on results, it can bring you down because it can demotivate you when you don't see what you want to see. But it is a process. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time.
Yeah, but how often do you hear people talking about their goals or their progress towards their goals, and they're focusing on the outcome rather than focusing
The
on
actual
what they're
journey.
doing every day?
Yeah. No, I think that's the main part of it is the getting to the outcome. Like you're gonna be happy when you get there, but you're gonna go through a whole lot during it, and that's where people make or break.
Yeah. I think that's where the people who are disciplined and consistent are the people who make the progress. I mean,
Definitely.
we've all met people that are incredibly excited and motivated, but there's no
For about
plan.
2 weeks.
Yeah, there's no plan and there's no discipline. And you know that once that enthusiasm wears off, everything else drops off with
Yeah.
it. So, there's lots of things we want the outcome, but we've also got to be willing to do the work and do the input that's going to create that outcome. But we also have to be prepared to be patient for that outcome, something that I struggle with, because we all want quick results, but I think you have to find ways to enjoy the process and the journey as much as everything else while you're waiting for the outcome.
No, I completely agree. Completely
Tough
agree.
though. It is tough,
Yeah.
but I think it's reminding yourself of why you started and why you want to finish. But it is
Yeah.
that question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, and I know, like, you've had this conversation when you're leaving the house at like 6, 7 o'clock at night to go training, and I've been in the warm all day and I've got to go out to a class that I've booked onto. It's that element of, oh God, why am I doing this?
It's the morning ones that I can't do. I used to be able to do them a lot better, but
You
leaving
used
a
to
warm
be up
bed.
and out like before 6
Yeah.
to go training.
Yeah, I don't know how I could do it. I could not do that now. Could
So
not
I
do
think
that
that's
now.
also the accountability, because you were training with other people at that time. So there
Yeah.
was that team element of you were all showing up for each other as much as you were showing up for yourself. So if you
Yeah.
get up and go, you knew that that would potentially have an impact on others.
Yeah. Mess up the numbers and yeah.
And nobody wants to be the one that doesn't show up.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to be that
Exactly.
guy. Okay, so question 4. Ooh, different. So different a shift, different type of question. What ideas do you have to help develop what you may feel is your life purpose into a fulfilling career?
Can I hear the start of that question again,
Yeah,
please?
what ideas do you have to help develop what you feel is your life purpose into a fulfilling career? So when you've got something that you feel like that's your purpose in life, how do you take that from just being something that you do either as a hobby or like in a voluntary role, to how you make that into a career?
I don't even know how to answer that question, so I'm gonna let you go
Ah,
first.
that's so kind. So I mean, it is a really difficult one. I think it is a real challenge. I think firstly, you really need to understand what you feel your life purpose is and what that looks like. But I think also there might be different elements to that. And when you're talking about making it into a fulfilling career, you're talking about making an income out of that purpose. So I think there are different ways of doing that. And I would say you probably need to understand like what kind of like what percentage needs to be fulfilled with that purpose. So I think it could be influenced by that purpose and create an income from that. But if you really want it to just be that purpose, then it might be that, how do you make money? How do you bring in an income? How do you generate an income from something that you feel is your purpose? I mean, the person who's asked the question hasn't shared what that might be.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of purpose led is that sort of wanting to contribute, wanting to contribute something outside of yourself. I mean, if the exercise that I go through with people is the ikigai. So it's 4 questions like what are you good at? And what do you love to do? Because that sometimes might be 2 different things. Sometimes there'll be an overlap, there'll be the same things, but what you are good at, what do you love to do? What can you be paid for? And what does the world need? So you've got 4 questions, 4 answers. And when you start to look at what's appearing on each of those 4 pages, then you can start to see where that overlap is. If anyone's watching this, listening to this, and want to do that exercise, pop me a message because I can send you a workbook that will walk you through it. But you're looking for things that appear across all 4. So really, from the Ikigai talks about your purpose being something that you're good at, something that you love to do, something that you can be paid for, and something that the world needs. And if you hit all 4 of those, then potentially that can be something that you could make a career out of, because there is a payment there. There's the fulfillment of what the world needs, but there's also things that you are able to do, that you're good at, that you can contribute. I think it's quite hard to find something that ticks all of those boxes, but I think if you speak to a lot of people who are self-employed, they've been able to do that because we're able to control the decisions that we make, the choices that we make. We're able to choose what we want to do to make sure that it aligns with all of those. But I think a lot of people will compromise and they will have work that brings in the income. So they'll have employment that generates an income. And then the things that are more purpose-led for them, they might do outside of work. So the work allows them or enables them to be able to do those other things, perhaps voluntarily or on a part-time basis. So I think be open. I think in terms of answering the question, what ideas do you have to help develop? I think be open to what you are willing to do. Be open to maybe doing it in different ways. You might need to think outside the box a little bit, but also being really clear on what your purpose is, what you want that to look like, and what you want to spend your days doing. But I would also add the word of caution that for a lot of people, when they start to turn something that brings joy to them, something like that is a hobby, when you start to try and create an income from that, it can take the pleasure away, because you're no longer doing it by choice. You're doing it because you need a return on that, and it puts a different
Yeah.
pressure on it that for a lot of people, it takes away the enjoyment. So I think, again, that's something else to consider.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I
Okay.
don't think I've got anything better to say than that because I think I think you discovered something that you were good at when you got into coaching. Is that you enjoyed to help people, and you were patient and you made a career out of it. And I mean, you're definitely the expert with that.
I think it's really difficult. I think it's an ideal for a lot of people of being able to get paid for the things that you love, and it's the
But it's not
greatest
always
feeling.
realistic, just depending
No,
on what you
exactly.
love. Yeah.
Exactly. And I
Like you said on the 4th thing, it's just depending on what you love. Can it make money? Is it going to make, does the world need it? It just all depends. Whether all, if, like you said, if those things line up, then you should really push for it. But at the same time, you don't want to jeopardize another career in terms of that.
yeah, I think it's a tough balance. And I think it's something, it's not a decision that people take lightly, that's for sure. But I think it is just being able to line it all up. But I think I would almost argue that whilst purpose is important, aligning your work and aligning your career with your values is more important than aligning it with your purpose.
Like
That might be another conversation for another time. Okay.
that.
Right, here's something that I know you will definitely have an opinion on. So what do you think holds people back more? Fear of failure or fear of success?
Well, I don't know how you could ever have a fear of success. I'm sure you'll enlighten me, but I definitely like with a fear of failure. Excuse me, a fear of failure. It's like it's big. It's like you don't really want to push for something and push as hard as you can and not reach it and kind of just be stuck with like with what now? Like you want your what you're working on, you don't want that to fail. Like that's why that fear of failure is so real because you want this to work so bad that when it doesn't and you put all this work in, all this energy, all these thoughts, I think that that fear as well as letting other people down, that may have helped you in the way. I think that's a big thing. But I'd like you to explain to me the fear of success because I've never heard that in my life.
You've not heard of that?
A fear of success.
Yeah, it's very real
What are you scared of?
because things change when you're successful.
I'm like, oh no, I'm making so much money.
Oh no, I'm so good at what I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's give you some examples to help you. I mean, it's very real. So, like people talk about self-sabotage, that's fear of success. So you get so close to achieving what you set out to achieve that some people will self-sabotage, and that's fear of success. So if you think about certain things that you might set out to do, it might mean that you lose people along the way. Like it might be that you change as a person, you grow as a person, that you outgrow the people around you. Or it might be that, if you're, say, for example, in a work situation, if you're successful and you get promoted, you leave your team. Now, if you really enjoy working with your team, you really love going into work, that fear of success of, okay, what happens next, the unknown, the uncertainty has a big fear factor to it. So I think a lot of people do fear success, they just don't necessarily recognize it.
I don't think I ever have from the scenarios you've described. 'Cause I mean, with with my basketball career path, any time I've had a chance to move up, I've done it because I know that despite all the teammates I would have been with before, and as much as I would have enjoyed being around them, like, I know that they want that for me as much as I want it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, where if you get promoted and you start working with a new team, like they exist outside of work. Like even though everyone's busy, everyone has their lives, everyone has their own things. Like that doesn't mean that you have to let go of friendships that you make along the way.
I agree, but it's not necessarily a legitimate fear. So sometimes it's just that fear of, leaving people behind, or things changing. So I know that, when I, in terms of like my health, when I changed, when I became much more like fitness and health focused, I lost contact with a lot of people who wanted to go out drinking and smoking and partying. And so when my priorities changed, the people who still wanted to continue to do that, they continued to do that. But I didn't want to continue to do that anymore because it was conflicting with the things that were important to me. And so that me changing my direction of what was important to me meant that I ended up spending less time with certain people, and I think sometimes that can be really important too. So you almost get like those conflicting priorities of like, I want this, but I still want this at the same time, but the two don't go together. And I think, you know, we've talked about this before. I think because you started basketball at such a young age, and I think a lot of your friendship circle and people that you surround yourselves with, they get that. So
And
they're
they
going to
also
be
want the
similar
same thing.
mindset
Yeah.
people. And I think they get why you would make those decisions, and then they would support you to make those decisions. But I think, you know, as you kind of start different roles or different careers, or you know, different teammates, that might change. But I think your world, if you like, is still very basketball centered. So it
Yeah.
means that you are surrounded with people who are like you.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
But you know, I think that's one of the things, like, as you move through life and your priorities change, you know, I think that changes. And I suspect you've probably had people that have had other priorities away from basketball that have moved on. You're still in that, you know, you're still in your group doing your thing, but there are probably people who've moved on to go and do different things, and their success has meant that they've moved away
From that
from
circle. Yeah.
your kind of circle. So it's like it impacts people in different ways. But I think fear of failure is what I think people are much more aware of. You know, people don't want to fail. They don't want to put themselves into situations where they don't think they're going to be good the first time. I mean, that's holds a lot of people back, even just taking that first step, because they think they need to be really good at it at the first go.
Yeah.
But I think
That's true.
fear of
Yeah.
success is very real. I just don't think people are aware of it in quite the same way.
Well, I wasn't until just now.
Yeah. I think it is definitely real. I think it's just probably not talked about quite as much. Okay. So I think this is a sneaky sixth question, but we'll go with it anyway. Do you need people around you to be on board with your goals? It ties on quite nicely.
Yeah, we kind of spoke about it earlier, didn't we, in terms of
Mhm.
like me and you holding each other accountable. But then I think with the right amount of discipline, you can do things on your own. And like I'm sure I think everyone has their own internal goals, whether it's something they don't share with other people, but something that they can hold themselves accountable for. So I think it is possible, but I do think it works better when you do have people looking out for you and like we said, like just holding you responsible and accountable for taking the right steps to achieve those goals.
Mm. I think there's almost like three different categories. You've got uh like the neutral kind of people, like people around you, they're supportive but not necessarily actively like pushing and encouraging
Yeah.
you, but then they don't do anything to push it, but they don't do anything to pull you away from it either. So it's that kind of neutral state. I think you've got the team of people around you that are like actively encouraging you and pushing you. I think teammates are great for that, coaches are great for that, you know, teachers, role models, friends, family can be really, really good for that. But there's like that kind of very proactive pushing you, like you can do more
Yeah.
than that. Go,
Yeah.
you can push harder, you can do more, and that accountability. And then I think on the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got people who either don't support what it is that you're trying to do, or that actually what you're trying to do conflicts with what they're trying to do, and in their own way, in trying to protect what's important to them, there's that risk that they hold you back or slow you down from what you want to do. And I know we've talked
Yeah.
about this in different ways on other episodes, but I think there's the
Could be
negative,
like
the neutral,
jealousy.
and the positive. Yes.
Yeah. No,
I
yeah,
do,
no,
I do
definitely.
think it's helpful to have people on board, but I don't think you need people around you on board. But it does mean you've got to be more
On
disciplined
it.
and
Yeah,
self-motivated.
definitely. Definitely.
Harder, but not impossible. I think also, maybe this is slightly controversial. I don't think it is, but some people might say it is. I think sometimes it's easier to not have people around you because
Really?
it can then, it removes those distractions.
I think it also removes the expectations. It's like
Mm,
you kind of, I wouldn't say you slow down, but you move at a pace that you're comfortable with, that you like, not obviously too comfortable, but like you you don't have that person like in a way Hawkeye and you like watching your every move, that you kind of you find it upon yourself to hold that responsible, and
mhm,
it is a nicer feeling when you're able to hold yourself responsible and you don't need someone checking and just like chasing you up basically, and asking, like, how's this and this, like, are you moving towards, just like really getting on you. But it, like we said, it does help, but then it is a great feeling to know that you can hold yourself responsible to your own goals.
I would agree. I think in my experience, the people who are most successful are able to do it alone and recognize when it's helpful to have other people to kind of
Yeah,
give them that extra
yeah,
push, like a turbo boost, and
yeah,
when it's the right people.
definitely.
But I
Yeah,
think, yeah, in my experience, I think the most successful people are the people that are able to do it themselves, but perhaps choose not to.
that's true. That's a lot of that. Yeah, that's a lot of that.
Mm. Ooh, some good questions. Okay,
Always.
so that's more than the Fire Five at Phoenix. So that's 6 questions that we've sneaked in, but some really good questions in there. The next topic will be on our beliefs, which we need our self-beliefs to be in line with, to launch us forward into what we want to achieve. So that will be the next topic. Send your questions in. Let us know what you want to hear us talking about. And we will be back again. We won't leave it so long next
Sooner,
time.
a lot sooner than the last
We
episode.
will
Promise.
we will be back with another episode. But if you've got any questions or comments from the things that we've talked about today, or if you want a copy of the Ikigai, Find Your Purpose, talking about your values worksheets, then just get in touch and ask, and I can send that over to you. But hope today's conversation was of interest and of value, and we will be back again very soon.
Yes, we will.